Welcome to our Psy.D webinar. I'm Bradley Cypher, the Psy.D Admissions Advisor at Divine Mercy University. The format of today's webinar is straightforward. I will first move through a PowerPoint presentation where I highlight some of the most salient aspects of the Psy.D program, and then we'll finish with some Q&A. So if you have any questions at any time during the presentation, please place your questions in the chat box, and I will field your questions at the end of the presentation. Also note that I've listed my email and my Calendly link as well as other resources in the chat box. So please send me an email or register for a time to meet with me on Calendly, and I look forward to speaking with you. Okay, so yes, this is the overview of our doctoral program in psychology at Divine Mercy University. A bit about me. When I was younger, when I was in college, I wanted to be an attorney. So I was planning on going to law school after college, but I became more interested in education as I went through my undergraduate years. And so I became a teacher. I taught I taught middle school during my first few years after college, but I learned that I was more interested in teaching at a higher level, and I was becoming more interested in my faith at the time. So I went to graduate school. I got a couple of master's degrees in theology before getting a PhD in theology. When it came time to write my dissertation, I wanted to do something more practical. While many of my colleagues were writing primarily speculative dissertations, I wanted to focus in on a more practical topic. So I chose addiction as the topic of my dissertation. And while I was researching, I bumped into Divine Mercy. They were really kind of doing a project that was very similar to my own. I was researching from an integrative perspective using psychology, theology, and philosophy. And that's exactly what Divine Mercy was doing. It's a program, all their programs are integrative in nature. And so I thought, well, after I defend my dissertation, this would be a place where I would like to work. And so sure enough, that's what happened. I applied for this job, and here I am. So my mission is getting people like you into their dream professions as clinical psychologists. So a bit about the history of our school. We were founded in '99. At that time, we were called Institute of the Psychological Sciences. But we were growing quite a lot thereafter. So by 2014, we had launched a master's in psychology program, which had a focus on working professionals. And then in 2015, we renamed our school at Divine Mercy University with the addition of our School of Counseling and our Master of Science in Counseling. So if you look at the school now, it's one university with two schools. So we have the School of Counseling, which has, of course, the Master's in Counseling. It's an online and hybrid program. And then the Institute of Psychological Sciences, which houses the residential doctorates and the Master of Psychology, which is entirely an online program. So our mission is healing and honoring the totality of the human person by integrating the best psychological science with Catholic anthropology in order to form mental health professionals of the highest caliber through rigorous academic and clinical training. So hopefully this will be one of you, or hopefully all of you will be in our marketing materials when you get your doctorate of clinical psychology. We are located outside of Washington, D.C. area in Northern Virginia, which is a wonderful, resourceful, and as one that did graduate school in much less ideal locations, this is a great place to work and live and study. We have a series of accreditations, which I think speaks to our commitment to high standards and academic and clinical rigor. We have received accreditation from the State Council of Higher Education, Virginia, the Association of State and Provisional Psychology Boards, the American Psychological Association, and the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, and the National Council of State Authorization Reciprocity Agreements. So we basically have every relevant accreditation. Now, a bit about what distinguishes, you might ask, the psychology doctorate from the Master of Science in Counseling. After all, don't they both prepare you to become clinicians? And yes, that's true. You can be a clinician either at the master's or at the doctoral level. So these are a few things, though, that separate a doctoral clinician from a master's one, at least in the level of training. So the first is that there's a strong emphasis in the doctoral program on psychological evaluation, psychological testing. Okay, so in the first couple of years, there's a series of four courses. We call it sort of like the four testing courses, you might say. So there, you have one of them in each semester in the first 2 years, and you're going to learn all the major psychological tests, from personality assessment to cognitive assessment, that will really prepare you to expand your scope of practice after you finish your doctorate. Also, you can see here that there's many more hours that are required for the doctorate than there are for the master's, which means that you're going to be abundantly well prepared to be a clinician at the highest level after the doctorate, 3,500 at the doctoral level versus 700 at the master's. And then the final big difference, to my mind, is the dissertation requirement. So doctoral candidates are required to write a dissertation, a full-length dissertation. And these can be broadly distinguished between empirical dissertations and theoretical dissertations. Theoretical dissertations tend to use ideas that they've gleaned from philosophy or theology, and how these ideas would impact clinical training, right? Historically, given our focus on a school that's a Catholic school that's a focus on integration and philosophy, we've had a lot of students do theoretical dissertations. But in recent years, given the strength of our faculty that's expanded to include faculty members with more empirical focuses, we've had many more students pick empirical dissertations, to the point where at this point it's pretty well balanced. I would say that we have about as many students writing empirical as theoretical dissertations. So it is a 5-year program, 122 credit hours. That does include a Master of Psychology degree in passing en route to the doctorate. So you would receive a Master of Psychology degree at the end of the second year of study. I want to show you the curriculum because it's quite illustrative of what you would be getting into here. So the first thing you might notice about the curriculum is that the courses are front loaded. Okay, but what I mean by that is there's many more courses in the first couple of years than there are in the later years. So in some sense, it's sort of like medical school in that by analogy. As you move through the program, you become more clinically focused. But in the beginning, it's a lot of kind of meaty science courses, philosophy courses, things like this. Okay, now from a clinical perspective, there's really kind of like a sequence, you might say. The first semester of your first year, you're taking a course called Basic Interviewing and Clinical Skills. And this course it's not, you're not seeing clients quite yet, but you are going to be role playing with your colleagues in class. And so, you might be the clinician, and you will be playing clinician, and your colleague will be playing clients, and then you'll switch. That's very common. A big theme of this class is empathy, right? So we place a strong emphasis on being able to understand the client in front of you. By this, we don't mean sympathy. We don't mean agreeing necessarily with the clients. Rather, to understand the person, you have to understand like the history, the history of their ideologies, and how they got to the present moment. Okay. Now, in the second year, you're going to start seeing clients. Okay. Probably it's between 2 and 3 clients. And then in the third year, you may triple the amount of clients you have, maybe between 7 and 9 clients. And that's intentional because we know that in the second year, you're still in full-time courses, and it's a lot of work, right? So the client load is pretty light. But then you have relatively fewer courses in year 3, and so you're going to have more time seeing people. And then by the 5th year is your internship, where there's no academic requirements at all. And there you're simply seeing people, you're working with other psychologists, things like that. There's no academics involved. Now, from an academic side, there are a couple of major milestones. The first is you're going to propose your dissertation by the end of the second year, and then take your comprehensive exams by the end of the third year, and hopefully defend your dissertation by the end of the 5th. Now, is this for you? Is doctoral level training in psychology your vocation? Here's a couple of questions that might help you discern. Do you want to help people flourish? Are you interested in the science behind human behavior? Do you want to become an instrument of healing through the psychological sciences? Are you interested in performing psychological tests and assessments to diagnose clients and create a treatment plan? Are you looking to start a career as a licensed mental health professional, but specifically as a clinical psychologist? And do you have the ability and desire to work with all types of clients from more acute care to more challenging and long-term client cases? So one might ask, how does Divine Mercy's doctoral program compare to other Psy.D programs? Well, we're similar to many others in the sense that we're APA accredited, and so we abide by a lot of the common standards that the APA sets forth. For example, foundations in psychological sciences, and research, integrity and practice, assessment and diagnosis, therapeutic intervention, and professional roles. Now, we are distinct, though, in the sense that we're not just a Catholic school, at least in name, and then we kind of have a secular kind of curriculum, but rather we're an integrative program. And so we really place a strong emphasis on integrating what the church teaches about the human person, and we put that in dialogue with the psychological sciences. The Psy.D will open up a great deal of opportunity for you after graduation. These are a few of the settings in which you could certainly work. A psychiatric hospital is a great opportunity if you especially enjoy working in a medical setting alongside physicians, nurses, physical therapists, things like that. You, of course, would be the psychological expert with your focus on therapy and psychological evaluation. Military establishments, so things like helping the different divisions of the military with evaluation, but also healing of people that have endured really serious PTSD. This is a big one because we have veterans that have gone through horrific experiences in battle, and there's a great need for them to receive therapy. And the good news is that the military recognizes this as an issue and is willing to divest a great deal of money to get their people healed. Private practice is probably the most popular, and for many, it can be a wonderful thing. I would say, if you enjoy the business elements of psychology, if you can see yourself having your own practice, selling yourself and marketing, this can be a great thing. But if you can't stand running a business and you don't want to put yourself out there and market yourself, this might not be the best thing. You might be a better fit elsewhere. Okay, outpatient clinics, or for that matter, working in a clinical facility, things like working in an addiction rehabilitation center is a great way to serve a population that needs a lot of help. It can be a very rewarding kind of experience. And then diocesan consultation, if you wanted to work, say, for a Catholic diocese, this is a great one because DMU has a great reputation in the Catholic world as a school that really trains people from a different perspective than many other secular schools do. For example, a classic case of this would be doing psychological evaluations for seminarians, right? Seminarians that apply to the seminary will need to be screened for things like affective maturity, et cetera. And so only a psychologist can really do that. Here our Psy.D alumni speak to their experience with us. James Walovich has said, in our clinical psychology program, the training is focused on healing the whole person. Kristen Long, I was drawn to the Psy.D program out of a desire to serve others in a more profound way than my previous positions offered. Timothy White, this school is not afraid to teach you what it means to be human at every level, psychologically, philosophically, and theologically. That's why I like it. And Kirsten Curtis, I'm so thankful for DMU. The faculty members are very supportive, and I've received lots of hands-on clinical experience. Okay, William Johnston is one of our current doctoral students who's done a lot of work in the area of PTSD and helping combat veterans get the healing that they need. So let's listen to his story.
Hi, my name is William Johnston, and I'm a Psy.D student at Divine Mercy University, currently approaching the end of my third year in the program. Military service runs in my family, and so both My grandparents served, my parents both served. This door, the Psy.D program at Divine Mercy University, opened that opportunity for me to continue to give back, to conduct research, and hopefully implement a more robust program to treat PTSD as it relates to combat veterans. DMU has certainly provided the integration that I've sought in terms of my formation, both the philosophy and theology core, in addition to the psychology curriculum, has provided me growth in terms of my faith and my role as a husband and father, and of course a psychological clinician. So in essence, the Catholic Christian meta model of the human person is why I'm here, both for my own sake as well as the sake of my future clients.
Okay, this is the story of a recently graduated Psy.D alumna.
I would say that being a student at Divine Mercy University, or DMU, is one of the best things that happens to me. I really appreciate a great support from faculty members and also classmates. I have gained a great deal of knowledge in all aspects of clinical practice, research, and also professional development. DMU not only provides students with strong academic skills, but also prepares them for a career in psychology. I personally benefit from mentorship with academic advisor and clinical supervisors. As a person, what I most appreciate from DMU is that its mission helped broaden my perspectives in understanding a human person through the lens of Catholicism. Catholic principles, especially in hope, love, and faith, are very valuable and certainly helped me become a better clinician.
Okay, and I have one more video for you guys. This is Isaiah Lamb. When he recorded this video, he was in the second year of the program. He's currently in his fourth year, so let's hear his story.
I'm originally from the state of South Dakota, and so I grew up there most of my life, went to school at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. I studied psychology there, but I kind of intended to go into the medical field. And then after, kind of in the midst of my undergraduate, I discerned that I wanted to go to the seminary, the Catholic seminary, to study to be a priest. So I had this love for psychology that was kind of there, I think, from an early age, just wanting to know how people function, why they do the things that they do. And then I found myself in seminary learning all these philosophical truths about humans. One of the first courses I took was philosophy of the human person, learning person's body and soul, and that there's this profound dignity attached to being human. Later discerned out of the seminary, returned to Nebraska to finish up my degree, and deciding at this point, well, I don't really want to go into medicine, but I do have this desire to care for people. And I also have learned, again, this philosophy about humans and their goodness. So I took a year off. I built pipe organs for a year. I always love telling people that. It's a pretty unique job. It was fun. But ultimately that led me, I decided to then do a year of service with the homeless in Denver, with an organization called Christ in the City. And there I like to say that all the things I had been learning about and dreaming about, psychology, philosophy, it was this incarnational experience of encountering people on the street in this profound suffering, mental anguish, substance abuse, what have you. And just actually experiencing that firsthand made everything kind of click for me. Okay, I have the ability to affect change and bring hope to people in the worst moments of their life. And so for me at that point, it was just very clear everything was starting to converge, and I felt more so that I wanted to pursue psychology. And so DMU was kind of my first choice, because everything that I had been learning about kind of just, again, converged here, right? The psychology, the philosophy, the theology, and it just seemed like the perfect fit. So I applied, And long story short, I got in, and in my second year now, and it's been absolutely more than I could have hoped for. I've had so much knowledge shoved in my brain the last year. I don't even know how it's possible, but it's just been a beautiful and awesome journey.
All right. I want to say a word about our faculty. So this is a generalist program in psychology, and by that I mean we don't have a hyper specialization in things like neuropsychology or forensic psychology. Rather, you're going to get exposed to all the different areas of psychology, which is reflective of the wide-ranging and diverse interests of our faculty. So this is Dr. Lisa Koloki. She's our dean. She's a specialist in assessment and therapy. Dr. Graves is our assistant program director. She's a specialist in child and developmental psychology. And Helena Oriana, Dr. Oriana, is our director of clinical training. Now, these three men were among the founding faculty members of our school, dating back to the late 90s. And if you wouldn't mind a quick story about these gentlemen, this guy, Dr. Vitz, here on the right, actually was an atheist when he was a young man. And he converted to Catholicism in the 70s after getting a PhD in psychology from Stanford University, and then getting his first academic position at New York University. But he didn't do that until he met and started dating a very lovely young French professor. Her name is Timmy, who at the time was just every bit, if not more, atheist than her boyfriend, Paul. And when they got married, and then she got pregnant, what happened was this caused a really huge crisis of faith. Well, I mean, existential philosophical crisis for Paul, because he thought, well, what am I going to tell my daughter about the meaning of life? Am I just going to say, well, there's no heaven, hell, purgatory, there's no soul, there's no God, there's no intrinsic meaning to your life other than what you might assign to it. Anyway, so he wanted to sort of know what was real, and so he went on this big kind of quest for the meaning of life, and he read a bunch of philosophers and theologians. And anyway, at any rate, he kind of started to see that there are only really a few live options. He could kind of continue with the pageantry of academia and kind of make himself his own god, but he saw that to be kind of unfulfilling. The other option would have been to get into New Age religion and Buddhism, but he saw that as intellectually unsubstantial. The third would have been to get into Marxism and Marxist politics, radical politics, sort of try to revamp the political arena, but he saw that man was more than just matter, and that politics was an inadequate answer to the meaning of life. The fourth was to really just convert to Christianity, Catholicism in particular, which ironically, at least for him at the time, was the most unappealing and option, but that's what he went with because he saw that that's where reason was leading. Anyway, so he converted, but at the same time, this is in the 70s, and things are, with the whole Cultural Revolution was in its heyday, and the humanistic psychology was also all the rage, especially led by psychologists such as Carl Rogers. Vitz took issue, though, with a lot of these ideas because he found to be very kind of narcissistic. There's a strong focus on the self rather than God and other people. And so from a Christian perspective, this was somewhat problematic. Anyway, so he wrote a book about it called Psychology as Religion, The Cult of Self-Worship, which I highly recommend to all of you. It's a great kind of introduction to an important thinker, really a pioneer of Divine Mercy University, Dr. Paul Vitz. Anyway, when this was released, Dr. William Nordling got a hold of it and read it and thought this was a brilliant work, but we shouldn't just settle for publishing this book. We should start a school. And he said, well, he got in touch with Vitz. He said, well, why don't we start a school? It would be unlike any other. It would be continuing the Catholic tradition of bringing faith and reason together. And it would be on the vanguard of this kind of new field, psychology, and it's never really been done. Bringing philosophy and theology together with psychology would be a new project. And so that's exactly what they did, is they started to raise money, they got faculty together, and before long, they founded DMU in 1999. The rest, as they say, is history. Now, on a sort of more prosaical level, the doctoral program will prepare you to become licensed in anywhere throughout the United States and elsewhere. The doctoral degree for licensure is, of course, required in the U.S., and there's about a 9 to 12 month period of supervision after graduation while you're under a clinical psychologist. And then after that, you take your exams at the national and the state level, and then you become a full-fledged psychologist in your own right. We have had a stellar, albeit imperfect, licensure rate of 95% from the past decade. So that's very good. And so I think this bodes well for all of you who are hoping to become clinical psychologists. The other good piece of news is that the demand for psychology is on the rise. The average sort of growth for most occupations is about 3%, but in psychology it's about 6%, so it's doing better than most. And the other thing I would say is that psychologists at the doctoral level are sort of a rare find, right? There's many, many more people that have master's degrees than doctoral degrees. And so when you pair a great deal of demand for a relatively limited supply of something, especially those that are doctoral level clinicians, they can do many more things than the master's level people can do, then you're looking at making good money. I mean, I think the average salary for psychologists is somewhere in the 90s. So you can make excellent money as a psychologist. Okay, investment. So it's 1,170 per credit for 122 credits. Over 5 years is 142,740. However, that does not include indirect expenses related to housing, gas, food, things like that. I would say most of our students don't pay that full amount, though. I mean, most will get between anywhere from 10 to 15% off of that sticker price, and sometimes more in some cases, depending on what scholarships you get, how much you want to work, that kind of thing. There's of course federal aid available through the government, so submitting a FAFSA form is common for most of our applicants. Also, we offer, as I said earlier, work study. So we have work studies on campus available for our doctoral students. These are both on-campus employment, things like working with me and my colleagues in admissions, but also, if they wanted to, certainly working in as a TA or an RA in their latter years of the program. These are a bunch of scholarships to which you would be eligible to apply to. They pay up to the amount here indicated on the right-hand side. They attend to different demographics, so I would strongly encourage you to look at our website, our financial aid page, divinemercy.edu/financial aid, and it speaks to all of these in much more detail. A couple of especially noteworthy, I would say, is our 50% off merit scholarship. That is, the way that works is you don't apply that specifically. Rather, when you interview for the program, the faculty will rank all of the applicants in merit order and dole out the top merit scholarships to maybe the top maybe 3 or 4 of them. The other one is pretty easy to get, is the early admission scholarship. So if you apply early, you get $3,000 off of your first year's tuition. I mean, so if you are swift on the application, you basically get free money. So there you go. Now, requirements for admission, we do require at least a baccalaureate degree from a regionally accredited school. We do prefer that you study psychology, but in no way is that necessary. We've received applicants from many, many different disciplines, everything from the hard sciences to the arts and humanities. Minimum GPA of at least a 3.0 and a 4.0 scale. If you have a little bit less than that, if you have maybe like a 3.7, 8.9, get in touch with me. It might not necessarily be a deal breaker, but there are a couple of things that you need to be aware of. So please contact me and I can help you with that. In terms of the procedure, the way this works is you apply first online, okay? And then once that's received, the financial aid office will get in touch with you, and thereafter we maintain communication until all the other elements are taken in, things like the applicant, the GP, the GRE, the transcript, the essays, things like this. Once everything is collated, the dean will review your file, and then we will hopefully invite you for an interview. We do have 3 different interviews per admission cycle. This first one, though, November 8th, is our most overwhelmingly, it's our most popular one, for a couple of reasons. The biggest one is that we tend to give out most of our top merit scholarships to the people that get into this interview, for the simple reason that it tends to attract the best students, the most conscientious students, the ones that want to get in early and get it done. And as I said earlier, there's a $3,000 early admission scholarship for people that get everything in before October 25th. So that's pretty easy to get. Now, the other things that will be required in addition to the online application, which is on our website, is the following. Essays. We do require a couple of admissions essays about why you would want to become a clinical psychologist, why you want to study at Divine Mercy, and then also what areas of research are you interested in, and where do you want to focus your dissertation, things like that. The resume will need to be updated and sent in, and then recommendations will require 3 of them. 2 need to be, actually, I take that back. This is inaccurate. They don't need to be from professors, but they can be. So either professors or work supervisors, one of the 2 will do just fine in any order. So you can have, if you have been out of college for some time and you only have professional recommendations, that's fine. If you're college students or recently minted college graduate, academic recommendations will do just fine as well. Also, transcripts, do send those to us from all post-secondary schools. So if you have, regardless of whether you have a graduate degree or an undergraduate degree or both, do send those to us. And then the GRE is required. However, it's not a super, I wouldn't say it's the most consequential element of the application. So it's better to get it done than to try to get it done perfectly. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily worth sort of stopping life for the next couple of months to study. It's much better to just register for the exam and take it to the best you can and send us the scores. Do send us the scores via this code 5639 when you take the test. For international applicants that hold degrees from institutions outside the United States, these will need to be evaluated to distill your transcript into an American GPA. So if you have a transcript that doesn't have, a GPA on a 4.0 scale, they will need to be evaluated by an evaluation service such as west.org or Educational Perspectives. Either of those will do just fine for the evaluation. Also, the applicants need to make sure that their degrees are equivalent to an American baccalaureate degree. And then if the credential isn't in English, it will need to be translated into that. And this, of course, is your responsibility. And then finally, if English is not your primary language, and by that I mean if you don't do most of your personal and business affairs in English, we would say that English is not your primary language, in which case you would need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS academic tests. Okay, so if you have questions about that, please get in touch with me. I'd be happy to help you. Okay, let's look at some of the questions that people have asked. Let's see. All right. Renina, all right, can you provide your email? Okay, I put that in the chat box. That was the second thing that I posted. It's bcypher@divinemercy.edu. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Let's see what else. All right, Thomas from Ghana. I'm a senior fire instructor at the Fire Academy and Training School of the Ghana National Fire Service. I'm really interested in applying to the Psy.D program. I want to know if the program is fully funded. Okay, so this is when I was speaking about the scholarships. What I should have sort of maybe explained is that this is not a PhD program. And by that I mean this is not a program that you would receive full funding. And usually what people mean by that is there's a tuition remission and sort of like a living stipend. That's not the model that most American Psy.Ds have. So unfortunately, that's impossible. However, there are financial aid opportunities available, there are scholarships available. So please take a look at that. If you have other questions, do let me know. Okay, what if I already have a master's in psychology? Can I skip the first 2 years? I'm afraid that's not possible. If you have a master's in psychology, you would maximally get up to 18 credits transferred in, which would definitely make different semesters, depending on where those credits fell, easier, and you wouldn't have to pay for those courses. But I'm afraid, given APA regulations, you can't just sort of transfer in a master's degree and get the first 2 years waived. Elizabeth, what is the full tuition price? Do you offer scholarships? Are classes offered online? I'll take the last one first. This is not an online program in any way. This is an entirely in-person, brick and mortar APA accredited doctoral program. So that's it's just not the model. I did speak about the scholarships and the tuition price earlier. So I just want to really quickly revisit that. Actually, I can't. I'm unable to do that. I'm sorry. But Elizabeth, yes, we talked about that if you do have questions about it, email me, get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to discuss that at a greater length. Okay, everyone, thank you for joining me. It was a pleasure to hold this for everybody. Again, if any have any questions, get in touch with me via Calendly or my email. And with that, take care and God bless you.